Good morning, everyone. Welcome to what is the second of our question and answer sessions on the Green Home Grants Voucher Scheme. We have got three speakers for you today. We have Simon Ayers from Trustmark, we have Ian Rippon from MCS, and Ruth Richmond from BEIS. Ruth seems to have a couple of problems connecting at the moment, but hopefully we will hear her shortly.
I think I'm on now, hopefully.
Oh, excellent.
Let me know if you can't hear me.
Yes, we can see you and hear you. Thank you very much. Welcome. So we have our three speakers. For those of you who don't know, I'm Kenneth Campbell. I'm the chairman from the Energy Efficiency Association. I'm just going to introduce Gary Braybrook, who's our chief executive, and he's just going to say a few words. So, Gary, I will shut up and let you kick things off.
Thanks very much, Ken. Ladies and gentlemen, friends, welcome to our second Zoom call. The first one, we've had some great feedback, and Simon, we've had some fantastic feedback of your speaking ability and knowledge. So thank you so much. Welcome, Ian and Ruth. Hopefully we're going to unravel a little more today. I do believe there is quite a bit to be unravelled. And as always, we're here to help. Ken will obviously be firing some questions. Now, as of last time, we were getting questions through the chat. If you have questions that you want, that you think of as we're going along, put them on the chat. We can't guarantee they're going to be asked, but at least we can have an option there. We had quite a lot of questions come in, but the problem was most of them were the same question. And I think a lot of it is to deal with the time span of the delivery and the hold up of the vouchers. Now, I'll speak to you later on and we'll crack on, because obviously time is of the essence. Thank you so much for supporting us. I'm going to try and see if we can do one of these every month. If at all possible, we can get the collaboration obviously from the speakers, because we need to know what's going on and we need to know how this is panning out so we can all help. We need to get on with this now, because winter's on its way. I'll speak to you later on, but enjoy yourselves, and I hope you find it very informative. Thank you.
Thanks, Gary. What I want to do is ask Ruth to maybe give us a quick 5-minute roundup on what's been happening with the Green Home Grants Voucher Scheme since it launched, and just to give us a little bit of an indication of what BEIS's thinking is and where things are going with it. So Ruth, over to you.
Right, so my name's, hopefully you can all still hear me with having moved there. My name's Ruth Richmond. I've recently rejoined BEIS. I've been away for 12 months, just come back. I've come back to the Green Homes Grant Voucher policy team, leading on supply chain and market-facing issues. So hopefully I'll get to know more of you over time. I have worked in energy efficiency and heat previously, so I may already know some of the people on the call. But obviously very happy to get to know more of you and go to more events and things like this. Just jumping the wrong thing, which is not going to help me. Right, so as you're aware, we launched the scheme at the end of September. This was a partial launch in terms of actually being able to issue vouchers. It was opening so that people can apply and we can get people moving forward ready to be able to get vouchers out as soon as the system is ready to do that. We are expecting to issue first vouchers in November, potentially a little bit earlier, because we are doing some manual processing alongside the IT build. But I wouldn't want to promise that any will come earlier than that, but we're hoping to get a few earlier than that. We've had almost 17,000 consumer applications so far. and there are over 100,000. No, that's not right. Wrong word altogether. Over 1,000 installers who've signed up, who are signed up with Trustmark. We've got a slightly lower number than that signed up with us, and so we're very keen to understand why some of the people who are registered with Trustmark who could be signed up to the scheme haven't yet signed up with us. So obviously I'm very keen to get feedback on that, and anything we can do to try and help people come up to sign up ready to be part of the scheme. I do appreciate that there is still quite a lot of information that people want to know, and that we perhaps haven't been able to give them yet. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to give everything. Well, I know, having looked at the questions that have already been sent in, I'm not going to be able to answer every single one of those today, but I will answer as many as I can. And I will promise that most of this stuff will be issued in the next couple of weeks before the first vouchers are issued. So we should be able to get that information out to you as soon as we can. Generally, I'd say do keep giving us your feedback, and we are trying to make updates, make changes, get information out as we can. It's sort of a live situation with stuff changing regularly, but we want to get that stuff out there to enable people to sign up to the scheme and get moving. I'll hand back to you there.
Thank you very much, Ruth. And then just quickly like to go over to Simon Ayers, who has been very, very helpful since the last call, answering more questions that we've sent over to him, and I'm sure that he's got quite a bit to say. So if you want to take the next 5 minutes, Simon.
I might have very little to say. You never know. It would be a rare thing, but anyway, just to sort of, I think, come back over a couple of points. I'm not going to share slides today. This was an investment into economic recovery. It was the creation of jobs. It was about creating some lower carbon property on the journey to whole house retrofit and to net zero. And it was really to get the industry stimulated, to get it focused, to get it moving, and create the transition for it to move to this new position that we know has to happen over the years to come. And I think that the sort of areas I wanted to pick up today is just really some of the early noise in some of the early areas that we've seen. But a few points just to be really clear, because even today we are still getting questions about some of the fundamentals. So for a business to partake in the Green Home Grant Voucher scheme, you have to be Trustmark registered. Yeah. If you are dealing with low carbon areas, then you have to be MCS registered as well. And you must have either the PAS 2030 certification or the MCS equivalent to make sure that you can deliver those areas. We have people still trying to register with Trustmark for different areas with actually not a huge amount of knowledge of what they're meant to be doing. So I'm not quite sure what's happening with some of those areas, and we're doing some more work around infographics to help that. The other element of this is that when the work is completed, the work does have to be lodged onto the Trustmark data warehouse. That links to the MCS MID database, and between the two of them, we then have a record of the work, what's been delivered, how it's been delivered, where it's been delivered, how it's protected, and that will then be used for audit and compliance purposes. So I know Ian's speaking shortly, so Ian will be doing audit work as much as Trustmark will be doing audit work, alongside also the administrator in terms of looking at some of the areas around fraud. So there will be, I think, more levels of audit and compliance in this process than has ever happened before. And that's probably recognizing some of the past history. The PAS certification, lots of conversations going on at the moment around access to PAS. And actually, I'd be really interested in any feedback, especially from those of you that are maybe smaller businesses, on what are those challenges to becoming PAS certificated. I know you'll probably say money is going to be one of them, without a doubt. You will have things like, the quality management system. Anything you have or any nuggets that would help other businesses or help yourselves in being compliant, we would be really interested to know. And the reason we're interested is that the competition for the Training and Development Fund that was run by BEIS closed last night. So we are now looking at where we can link into lots of those areas to build a better future and also help businesses achieve some of these areas. PAS, we know, is seen as a barrier by some. I think for a smaller business, quite rightly, then it doesn't always fit. So we have to think about what that future may look like. But sort of, I think we've got to come back also just to why have we got quality? Why have we got the PAS? Why is it being such a driver? If we go back to some of the previous government-driven initiatives and some of the funding, we had issues around mis-selling in the FITS areas. We had lots of sort of perceived issues over a cavity wall. We've had RMI work delivered in very poor quality. So quality has got to be something that when we are spending the taxpayers' money, that we ensure is delivered. So there has to be some quality driver, some rule put in place to support the delivery of this. That causes its own problem because some of the consumers now are saying they can't get hold of businesses. Businesses aren't responding as much as I think consumers aren't being particularly polite in some ways. There's this perception of now, it's free money and I need this money now. And I use the Amazon term. It's almost like we've suddenly all become Amazon Prime and that they want the heat pump installed tomorrow. But we've created this whole industry. And I think, that there's a bit of timing, there's a bit of planning, and we've got to try to get some key messages about there is plenty of vouchers still to be issued, but this is a phased approach in how we do this. So there are a number of things we've got to change in the language in what we're doing. I think the sort of the levels of work that we are talking about even astound me. I've talked to people now that have had maybe 300 or 400 inquiries in a day. I think we talked about heat pump inquiries into the hundreds per day, but which is sort of really troubling in terms of delivery. But actually looking to the future, if there are other initiatives, my word, what a fantastic position it's creating. Because actually what we're probably seeing is that, the consumers with a bit of prompting, with a bit of support, may actually start delivering or looking to long-term delivery, which will support business investment and growth and all those things that go with it. So I think there's a whole transitional piece, a whole piece we've got to put together, which it really is massively important. But quality has to underlie it. We need competent people, we need good businesses, and we need to make sure we get it right. And I guess the last bit for me was some of the feedback we've taken. So lots of consumers are worried that money is going to run out. That's why they're panicking. So we have seen 1,000% increase in our contact center. We have people even turning up in our building. So with one family with a young baby asking for a voucher to be issued immediately. People are quite desperate, and I think you're probably catching some of the raw end of that as well when they're contacting you, because actually you can't do things immediately. You've got a plan for delivery. You have lots of probably quotes and everything to do. So there's some angst in those areas. But on the other hand, we've also had some consumers coming back saying, maybe some of our businesses haven't been quite as polite in return either. So we've got to create this position in the middle to make sure that we're doing what we can. Still confusion over what can and cannot be paid for. We have one issue at the moment where, unfortunately, a consumer has become fixated that they can have double glazing, as a replacement. And now, no matter what we say, they've got this in their psyche. It's become the real thing. So, we have to look at how we make sure the messaging is good, the messaging is correct, and we are delivering not only support to consumers, but support to you as businesses, because I think that's really important to make sure that we are all working together, because this is one hell of an opportunity we've got here. We have some challenges. I'm not sure whether any of you sort of deliver or get involved in Park Homes. Park Homes has created you know, a number of issues around the delivery route, and it's something that BEIS have been sort of heavily looking at and working with us on, and trying to look at what options there will be. And I'm guessing all of you have raised the cost, sustainability, and I think Ruth quite rightly mentioned, you know, we've had it fed back. Why is it the end of March? You know, we've got winter, we've got COVID, we've got all these things. Will there be a new position taken? Will there be a new view? Probably the terms and conditions have been raised. So for those of you that have registered with the administrator, some of those T's and C's have raised some concerns and challenges. So BEIS are taking that away to have a look at. That's been discussed again this morning. Some of the areas around eco-alignment have been raised again. And I guess really overall, I think we've created a minefield of information. So a lot of the work being done now with BEIS, the administrator, and Trustmark, is to look at how we can create some clarity, simple guidance, infographics, you know, without pages and pages of text. So it's moving forward. It's a bumpy ride at the moment. You know, we are being tackled by lots of the media on a regular basis. But I am still absolutely glass half full, which is, this is a fantastic opportunity. It's going to build our sectors, yeah, and it's the transition to what we should be doing longer term, bigger term retrofit, energy efficiency, low carbon, and making things much better. And at that point, Kenneth, I will shut up.
Thank you very much, Simon. Very informative, as usual. Now I'd just like to ask Ian Rippon from MCS just to say a few words about the scheme from the MCS's point of view and about MCS in general.
Thank you. So I'm Ian Rippon. I'm the Chief Exec of MCS, and great to have the opportunity to talk to you. I'd echo Simon's sentiments. This is a great investment, a policy move that MCS welcomes. I think there are some issues with getting the thing live, and I'm very sensitive to the fact that BEIS officials are working incredibly hard in a short space of time to deliver the scheme when they'd normally have a lot more time on things like domestic RHI. So we're welcoming it. We're also planning significant uplift in our compliance activity. We know that short-term incentives can create market opportunities for those less ethical traders, and we're going to be analysing the vouchers redeemed against MCS certification, certified installations to sort of spot that behaviour as soon as we can, if indeed it's there. But MCS is working hand in glove with Trustmark to make sure that the data links are there to enable that to happen. So I thought I would share with you, actually, we issued a survey yesterday morning to our installer community, and maybe some of you are on this call who've answered it. So you're the first to hear the feedback from MCS certified installers, of which there are around 800 who are working in the low carbon heating sector. So normally I wouldn't talk about a survey after day one, but the amount of interest that it's generated is phenomenal. So we've had 99 responses in just a few hours. And I've been pleasantly surprised, actually, because we did this a while ago and 73% representative sample of our installers said they were going to engage with the grant. What we've got overnight is 81% are saying they're going to plan to participate, and 88% of those, I know the maths is a bit of a fuddle, but have registered on the government website to be a Green Homes Grant installer. So there's a lot of intention to participate. So the reasons, I guess the downside, the reasons why we've asked installers, why wouldn't you take advantage of this great opportunity? And 30% of those reasons are around, we're concerned about the installer terms and conditions, which maybe might stimulate a question for later. And for those that are undecided as to whether they will participate, the main factor that would encourage their participation is an extension of the scheme, which is something MCS is calling for. I totally understand, though, that this is Treasury initiative, and it's within the fiscal year. But it is creating a high demand, which is on one side is really fantastic, great indication of consumers wanting to do the right thing for their homes. But that demand is not going to be satisfied in full, and that's a disappointment. Many of our installers are saying that they're having to have messages on their websites and on their phones saying, we're not taking any more Green Homes Grant calls until January. So I think we just need to set some expectations and hopefully encourage the government to extend this grant, because it clearly is stimulating demand. So that's all I wanted to say, Kenneth.
Well, thank you very much, Ian. That was very useful as well. So now what I'm going to do is go through some of the questions that we have received already, because there have been a number. The number one question from all our members has been on the deadline. And I'm just going to read out one of those, which is from Andre Tartza at Pioneer Wall Cladding. He's basically asked, has BEIS investigated similar schemes where jobs were created during the winter months, leading to poor quality work due to the temperature, the time pressures and inclement weather? And based on our experience, the same is likely to happen with this scheme. What measures are being put in place to prevent taxpayers' money being spent on work that should ideally happen over the spring and summer? So I think that's one for you, Ruth.
Yes, so I think we are very aware of these concerns. I mean, unfortunately, when the money was announced in July and had to be spent by March, so we didn't have much option. Ideally, I think this scheme would have run for longer and allowed for more considered approach to it. And I mean, I think I can be perfectly on the fact that we are trying to get an extension to the scheme. We're working very hard to get that, and I think that hopefully that'll come through. And when it does, some of these, it might be easier to, I think that'll ease a lot of concerns that people have with the scheme around things, both quality and around just trying to get everything done in time. Unfortunately, at the moment, we don't have that. Treasury haven't yet promised us to be able to do that. I hope they will. But for now, we are stuck with where we are. So we have to make the best of it. And for us, I think the key thing around here about making sure that installs are done properly is the standards. And that's one of the reasons why we set the standards we have in the scheme, why we've required standards in the registrations that we have in the scheme, because I think that's a key part of ensuring the quality for the consumer for us.
Andre, you asked the question. Do you want to come back on that?
Please, Ruth, thank you very much for being here, and it's really the first time we see a ray of sunshine in a long time in our industry. So thank you, and really encouraging to hear. Today marks 100 calendar days since the announcement that was done on the 8th of July. And at that time there were 267 days up to the end of March, and all our work since the announcement, all our installation work has been postponed to whenever the green button will be pressed on the vouchers and we'll be able to start working. This results in basically higher costs, and it will result in price inflation, because we have to keep paying people to do nothing, and that's putting lots of pressure on us. I'm not looking for an immediate answer to that or comment, because I think it's quite clear what it is. But thank you so much for being here and clearly being willing to work with us and to see how we can best all together get homes energy efficient. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Andre. Do you want to make a comment, Ruth? Or
I was just going to say, I do understand the situations that have arisen here. I don't think it's ideal. Ideally we'd have had ideally we'd have had a slightly different timeline for this scheme. But I think we have to make the best of where we are and hope. And we are trying to get the vouchers. The vouchers should be out in the next couple of weeks, so there will be something happening then, and hopefully that will enable some of the current issues to be overcome.
Thank you very much. So next I have a question from Jessica Binks from Improve Easy. She's asked, can BEIS and Trustmark both provide clear guidance on any circumstances where insulation can be partially installed under the scheme, as the current information seems to be inconsistent? There seems to be a contradictory information coming from Trustmark and from BEIS. So would it be possible to get clarification on that?
That's something I can take away and check that our guidance is check that the guidance is clear as to the position. I think, because I'm not technical myself, so I'd probably want rather than say something here that's wrong, I'll take that one away and make sure the guidance is clear. Could I have contact details, and I'll come back with that one once I've been able to check with our technical people.
Thank you, Ruth. We'll sort that out. Simon, do you want to?
Yeah, I was just going to add, Kenneth, that I think, as we've been going through this, there have been many discussions around the areas that would and would not be covered. And so I think, quite rightly, as Ruth has just said, we'll sort of take this away and work with BEIS to make sure we get that clarity out to the sector. And it's not, I think there are 2 or 3 areas that we're working on at the moment where that will happen.
Okay. Jessica, do you wish to come in on that?
Yeah, thank you both, Simon and Ruth. Yes, I appreciate if you could both work together and get some consistency. I suppose just to highlight some things in particular, I know that Trustmark, you've got some quite detailed guidance now in the requirements for registered businesses. And I think that's not then wholly replicated in what information that I see on the BEIS Green Homes Grant page. So if that could be sort of developed further and then make sure that that's consistent across both of those, that would be helpful. I think also, Simon, if it's useful feedback, the requirements for the businesses could be made a bit more prominent as well on the Trustmark Green Homes Grant scheme. It's sort of a little bit tucked away at the moment. And then there's just a final point. I know obviously this is the Green Homes Grant scheme, it's not eco, but many of us on this call will be working under both Green Homes Grant and the eco scheme. So it's not very helpful to have what at the moment appears to be slightly different requirements around installation across the 2 schemes.
Okay, I think, Jessica, just to feedback, eco, so the position of eco is the position that we are now with. Yeah, so I appreciate you've got the end of this month with one set of rules, and then you've got Green Home Grant with a different set. They are now fixed though, so they are the rules that are being worked to. The prominent sort of display of the business requirements, I'll take that away definitely and look at. We probably hit it deliberately for the first thing, just to, sorry, no, I don't mean that, but just in terms of, we will make sure that we get something out and we're clear. But the other thing we are doing also is looking at how we can create some clarity in those, because it is quite confusing in some of the areas when you go through everything. So that is being done as we speak.
Okay, thank you very much. Next question is from Emma Adams from ARP Energy Services. In the installer terms and conditions in point 13G, it states that installer is to comply with requests from the scheme administrator to download and utilise, as and when required by the scheme administrator, a mobile application for on-site photographic verification in order to support the documentation of an eligible measure being completed and with pre and post installation photographs. Is this happening, and when will the app be available?
Coming soon, I'm afraid, as with so many things. Very soon, I understand. I was in a conversation about this literally yesterday, where we were saying, hold on, why isn't this app ready yet with the developers? So because obviously we understand that the installers do want to be able to, see what it is they're going to have to be working with, and understand what it is they're going to be asked to be done. So, we're pushing the developers on this, and it will be ready soon. But I'm afraid I don't have it yet.
Is it likely to be ready by the first vouchers being issued?
That's the aim, yes. That's certainly the aim. I mean, because realistically, to have an automated process, you need to have all the stuff in place that goes with it, and that's part of the process. To be able to, the consumer has a dashboard with their application on, and the idea is that the installer stuff uploads into that, so it kind of all is done through one system. That's the plan anyway. I'm not deeply involved in the IT development because I'm definitely not an IT person, but I know it is something that we're really pushing on to try and make sure that it's done. And my colleagues who are IT knowledgeable are deep in this, trying to make sure that this stuff is ready. So I believe that's the aim. So.
Emma, do you want to come in on that?
I'm just curious as to, is this a requirement for when we actually have to claim the voucher and get paid? So if we're doing all the surveys at the moment, should we be taking the pre-photographs so that we can ensure we get paid? So can Ruth answer that, please?
Let me check. Let me check, because I appreciate that's something you will need to know. Let me check exactly what we're going to be asking for in terms of thing. It might be prudent to take some, but let me check that, and I'll confirm that, because I think what we're actually. I'm just trying to think through the logic. I'm trying to remember what we were shown, because we were shown a demo of this a while ago. Let me check and come back to you, because I'd hate to give you the wrong steer on that. So, let me check and come back.
Can I just add, Ken, that obviously we do take photographs during all survey stages, and we have those. But if you have a particular requirement that has to be completed for all the compliance documents, that we need to make sure that's in place, and that all costs money in collecting that information. So we just want to make sure we're getting that quoting correctly and have everything ready. Thanks.
Thank you. I think that's been taken on board. The next question we have is from Alan Hoy at Oscar. Given the issues with cavity wall insulation installed under previous government schemes, if the insulation has failed, is extraction and reinstall a measure under the voucher scheme? So can extraction and reinstall be done under the scheme? I don't know if you want to come back on that one, Ruth? Or is that one for you, Simon?
I'm actually just pulling up. I've got a list of things, a list somewhere that tells me what is eligible and exactly what isn't, because obviously, whilst insulation is the ins and outs of exactly what insulation isn't. But I can't get the list to come up right at the moment. I think my IT might be struggling a little with Zoom here, as it was at the beginning. So let me see if I can get that up. But if anyone, if Simon has got a better answer while I'm trying to pull my list up, that would be.
Okay, I think so. Probably the best thing we have to do here is to take it away and confirm it. So some of the conversations have been whether extraction would be included within the remediation before the insulation was installed. It's been debated quite heavily, I think, by Ruth and the team at BEIS. And probably the best thing is that I'll feed that back, Kenneth, rather than giving an answer which may not be correct at this moment.
Okay. Right. Do you want to come back on that, Alan? I don't know if Alan's able to come back on that. Doesn't look like it. Right. Scott Davies is asking, does replacing loft boarding constitute enabling work? and can cavities be topped up, assuming approved materials are used, partial fill cavities, etc. under ECO. So does replacing loft boards constitute enabling work?
I think, can I take that one away as well? Because I know we are getting lots of these sort of things, or the queries around things like loft boards, and partial fill is one of those that we'll also pick up with extraction. So I'll take away an action to get those clarified and back to you in those areas so that you can publicise those.
Okay.
I think loft boards is a live discussion we're having at the moment because we're aware the guidance isn't clear. So we'll clarify that one. And I've just checked with a colleague about cavity walls. And if the response he's given me, which is a very quick response, and I will come back to him as properly in writing, is that if the previous cavity wall was faulty, yeah, but it's not otherwise, if you see what I mean. So yes, you can't use the voucher to replace existing insulation, such as removal and replacement of cavity wall insulation, but you possibly can if it's faulty. So I'm going to check that because I'm still not convinced that position is very clear from what he's just sent me. So I'm going to check that and come back again, actually. But that's but it looks like there is some room for that. And the loft board one is a live discussion that we know we need to clarify. So we will do that.
Do you want to come back on that, Scott?
No, that's fine. I'll just wait for the answers. Thanks.
Thank you. Now, next we have Nina has asked, please would someone be able to confirm if 100% of the measure installed is required, especially for internal wall insulation and room and roof, as this has recently been raised as a requirement for ECO. So again, we're getting this similar questions. We need answers to what's happening with partial installs,
it is literally just a replication of what Jessica asked earlier. But I hadn't seen Jessica's question, but yeah, it's exactly the same question. We need to decide which guidance we're working to, really. It'll be handy. Thanks.
We are aware the position on internal wall is unclear as well. That's another one that's a live conversation at the moment, and the aim is to clarify that one shortly.
We've had a number of questions about room and roof as well. So yeah. Next, do insulation materials need to be BBA approved? Jacqueline Finn's asking that.
I think it's worth saying that the materials should be certificated and approved, through a recognised body. So, I don't think it's any single body in particular, but it has to meet the requirements, of being sufficient to put a guarantee onto it, and has been through a recognised certification process. And that's, I think, being stated all the way through. But it's not one single organisation. There are numbers of organisations that can do that.
Do you want to come back on that, Jacqueline?
No, that's fine. No, yep, totally agree with that.
Right, thank you very much. Next, we have a question from Sue Welland. Blocks of flats. I'm a freeholder in a block of 12 flats which comprise resident long leaseholders. One or two of these leaseholders, who are not on speaking terms, are on benefits and interested in insulation. The rest of the leaseholders are not bothered. Now, I, as the freeholder, owning the skin of the building and the cavities, put the application for cavity wall insulation and negotiate with the installer, or is it the individual leaseholder can't apply because you cannot insulate one flat only? It would make sense for me to aggregate the vouchers. That would create the job and reduce carbon. So what's the situation regarding voucher aggregation for flats.
So yes, we are in discussion with the IT developers about how we manage situations where there are lots of flats in a house and how they apply. So for example, if it's a landlord and it's a tenant, then obviously that landlord is an owner, so they can apply. If it's a freehold leasehold situation, it is more complicated. I thought we had already updated guidance around that. But if we haven't, I can check that and come back with more details if that's not actually in the guidance yet. So let me check that if that's gone into the guidance or not, because I thought it had. But if it hasn't, I will come back and check the detail on that.
Sue Willen, do you want to come back on that?
Well, just to say that I haven't seen the updated guidelines actually, and of course, yes, the individual long leaseholders within the blocks would agree to the insulation, but if there's 2 of them, for example, out of the 12, their 2 vouchers would cover the cost of the insulation, which would be good for everybody. But they can't individually apply. It'd be much better for the freeholder who's not a landlord, he's a freeholder who owns the sort of cavities, if you like, to apply and negotiate on behalf of everybody, you know, the whole block. So that's what we'd like to see, really, or understand, you know, what is possible.
Yeah. Okay. Let me take that one away, because I know we had been having a conversation with the IT developers about how we were going to manage freehold leasehold situations, and I'm not 100% sure where we got to on it. And it sounds like we haven't updated guidance either yet with the updated position, which. So let me take that one away. I'm sorry I haven't answered this to an awful lot of the questions, but we will come back with more detail on that.
Great, thank you.
Okay, the next question I have is from Olivia Garron. If a general builder wants to install insulation on a property but is not Trustmark accredited, can a retrofit coordinator sign off the work in order for the voucher to be approved? I think that's one for you, Simon.
Simple answer, no. They have to be a PAS 2030 registered business. Yeah, and the RC would be working with that business.
Do you want to come back on that, Olivia?
No, I think that's perfectly clear. Thanks.
Thank you. Next, we come on to park home insulation questions. We've got a few of those. Regarding park home insulations, 1 week before launch, in addition to our existing pass was announced B13. This is not something that is obtainable overnight, and whilst we achieve this requirement, what is being put in place to ensure that the consumer has an equal opportunity in securing the vouchers? Are our clients allowed to submit their application whilst their chosen installer obtains this, or would that be kicked back?
We are aware that park homes are a challenge. I mean, they're a challenge, I think, to do work on as well, which I think is why the standards are where they are. We're considering what else we can do on this at the moment. It's a live question. At the moment, the consumer's application would not go through as it currently stands, but it's an idea that I could take away and suggest to see if there's anything we could, if that would be an option to get them to if they could at least start their application before their installers are certified. It's an option we could take away. Let me take that one away and find out if that's even an option. But we're aware of the challenges with the certification there, and we're working with a few people around trying to seeing if there's anything that can be done there to try and speed that process up.
Well, I have another question on park homes from Keith Hanger, Prestige Developments. What is the future of BEIS 3632 standard for park homes, and how does it relate to the current and future green grants schemes? I don't know if that's maybe one for you, Simon.
I'm guessing BSI 3632 is the standard for park homes, which has been updated, I believe. Interestingly, probably my response to that would be a question back to the park home installers on the event today on the delivery of all areas of that standard, because we were on a call with a number of organisations who said that actually the standard hasn't been applied by a lot of businesses. So I guess I'm not too sure, Kenneth, because I don't know the BSI standard, but what I do know is, supporting what Ruth said, and I think Matthew has had communication with me also, that we have raised this with BEIS in terms of how we bring together the British standard, the requirements of the PAS, the identification that actually park homes are very different. There are lots of questions about extension of roofs, replacement of roofs, the age of the park home. They're all areas which are live questions that we are looking at the moment to support. But also the question around B13 is one that we are working with UCAS to see how we can support getting the certification bodies that are in the application process through in a quicker manner to support that there are options basically in the market for people to go to. So a huge amount of work going on around park homes. And, you know, I can only probably guess how frustrating it must be for those of you in that sector, but we are trying our best at the moment to work around and bring this all together with an effective solution that will deliver park homes to PAS 2030-19-2035, but supporting the industry.
I don't think Keith's able to be on the call.
Am I there now?
That's it, yes.
Oh, hi. Perhaps I've been on mute all morning. Yeah, if I may, just take 2 minutes of your time, guys. Gary, thank you for inviting me on here today. So my name's Keith Hanger. I'm the Managing Director and one of the founder partners of Prestige Developments and the Prestige Park Home Manufacturing Group. We've been the market leader here for 29 years, and we are the largest manufacturer of park homes in the UK. What I wanted to bring to the table today is not actually from my company, but from our industry, and under the watchful eye of the NCC, which are the governing body of the whole park home and caravan sector, was to look at how we can work with you guys in ensuring that the park home sector regarding the Green Deal scheme, Green Grant scheme, is managed correctly for everyone's benefit. In other words, using our complete and total knowledge of the construction side to ensure that the money from the scheme is being used wisely, which hopefully we can sit down and work on together so that PAS 2035 and the Park Home BS 3632 can work together, whereas at the moment they're miles apart. I visit around 1,700 estates, 80,000 homes, and in the last 10 years, the Green Deal schemes that have been used have fallen way short of standards that the industry not only demands, but the homes need. If they're not done correctly, and I'm sure many of you have been involved in some of the situations there, not only does it have a detrimental effect on the structure, it can then have a detrimental effect on that homeowner's right to even be in the home. Their legal parts of living in a park home. So what I would propose to you guys is that we potentially put maybe a 30-day hold on any vouchers going out to park homes, although from what we've said this morning, it seems that's going to tie in with the vouchers anyway, so that we can come up with potentially a package that ensures that all the funding for the park home industry is going to not just the businesses from a personal point of view, but to the consumer is going to benefit that home. Adding insulation to the outside of a park home does not necessarily help the structure. The EWI system, by definition, can't work. That's a bit more deep technical. It can work, but not in the way that the installers have been using it. And the way they've been using it is to purely save money, to enable that small amount of money to pay for a bigger job, and that is why they've been failing. That's a little bit more technical, but the point today for me anyway, thank you for allowing me to join you. I would love to sit down on behalf of the whole industry and say I've spent 36 years literally physically and from a director level building and refurbishing park homes, and we would welcome anything that we can do to help you guys to get this money to the right areas.
Thank you. Simon?
Hi, Ken. Keith, thank you for that. Keith, I'm not sure if you're aware, we've been discussing with John Lally at the NCC how we find a route forward. So I think, you know, I know BEIS are probably of us, I'm hoping of a similar view, which is we're happy, more than happy to engage with you to look at how we can all work together to ensure that park homes are delivered in the way they should be, that they aren't, you know, partially insulated and cause all the thermal barriers and the damage that's then caused to the property. So I think that the simple message back to you is, outside of this, if you know, we can communicate, we'll get something arranged and we'll have a conversation.
Okay. Hopefully that's okay for you, Keith. The next question I have is from Lee Morley. Why are we spending all this money getting past 2035 accredited to launch this scheme under past 2030? The new scheme is far superior in terms of quality, design and building physics, thermal bridging requirements, etc. Are we not concerned that this may lead to issues down the line?
So I think the answer to that is I completely support what's being said, that past 2035 on 2030-19 came into play following Each Home Counts, following the updates, and we are working towards that transition as we have clearly said. So as of June next year, then through Trustmark, if you are involved in energy efficiency measures, it will be a requirement that it's 2030-19, 2035. You have, and I think, you know, where Jessica was alluding to earlier with eco, it's slightly confusing because 2035 comes into play at the end of this month for eco in some of those areas. If you are moving through that process, because the easement tends to fall off, but 2035 becomes a requirement at the back end of March if Green Homes at this moment goes past it, which we know it won't. So the real answer to this also is that when you talk to the sector probably wasn't geared up for the Chancellor to put £2 billion, you know, in a lump sum of money into it. And, you know, we've suddenly had to react to that. I think we also, you know, we're going through a massive change with retrofit assessors, retrofit coordinators. We're looking now, we've just started doing the work around the 2035 lodgements. So now feeding that back to the schemes in terms of the compliance, because actually there are some areas where we're identifying, you know, we need to sort of just remind people of what they should and they shouldn't be doing. So I think that there's a whole picture that's coming together, but the speed of what we have to, or the speed of how we have to react for the Green Homes Grant really required that 2039, 2035 to take into account 2030-17. If you understood that, then you're much better than me, because I've just played that back in my mind and I'm not sure I do, but that's fine.
Do you want to come back on that, Lee?
No, I understood everything that you said then, yeah. I just, my concern is obviously from a past 2030-19 installer, we've had to spend so much money making sure that everybody within our company is trained. You know, I'm a coordinator myself, DEA. We've spent a lot of money, and the reason for that is because the experts that know about building physics say if it's not installed properly, it's not worth installing, because it can lead to future problems with, you know, the building fabric and with health as well. And I just think, personally, I think this scheme has come too soon. You know, not if the installers are past 2030-19, but I do think it's come too soon if they haven't got that accreditation. So that was just my concern.
You know, Lee, I would agree with you, which is if this had been 6 months later, we would have had more coordinators, more businesses through the transition. It would have been very different. Unfortunately, it's dealt the hand that it's dealt, and we have to manage that. What I do think, though, is that it will drive exactly what your desire is, and probably a lot of our desires, which is about that quality being driven up, that, you know, buildings are treated in the correct way as we move forward. So I think it's a stepping stone we have to accept at this point in time.
Okay, brilliant, thank you.
I was just going to add to that, that from a BEIS perspective, ideally we would have wanted 2035 on this. But we had to go with where the industry was at the time, given the timescales we have for the money. If the scheme does continue, if we do get some extra money beyond March, we will be looking at this question again. So I would obviously, I would still encourage people to get those accreditations ready to go, because, you know, ECO is going that way. All schemes will go that way eventually.
Thank you. The next question is another question from Jessica Binks. How long is it taking for the scheme administrator to register businesses? Can customers apply for the voucher while this is being completed? So if an installer registers for the Green Home Grants scheme, how long is it taking for that registration to go through?
There's a slight challenge at the moment in that, because we don't yet have the full IT system up and running, basically stuff is taking longer than it should. And sometimes people are registered, but they aren't getting notifications, and various other things like that are happening. This will all be sorted in the next couple of weeks. I checked this with my delivery focused colleagues. So I'm going to read out exactly what they told me, but I didn't think it was particularly helpful. We are processing applications at the moment. How the system is not fully up and running. Applications made from November will be approved or denied much more quickly. That's not the most helpful phrase from them, but to basically, I guess, to reassure you that we are processing applications, because we don't have the IT in place. It's going a bit more slowly at the moment. And to be honest, it's the same for consumers as well. There are more consumers applying than we can, you know, the vouchers aren't coming out yet. When the system goes live in a couple of weeks' time, everything will start happening a lot more quickly.
Excellent. Excellent. Do you want to come back on that, Jessica?
Yeah, I was just wondering, just the second part of the question, whilst we're still waiting for our installer registration application to be confirmed, are people able to start applying for the vouchers? And will that, you know, once our confirmation comes through that we're registered with the scheme administrator, those voucher applications will then sort of follow through?
I need to check exactly how the information flows work on the system to answer that, and so let me come back to you on that one. I get what you're asking, so let me come back.
Thank you. I suppose we're just wondering, should we be advising customers to hold off at the moment or continue with the applications? Thank you.
The next question, because I'm aware of time, we need to crack on. I don't know how you are for time, Simon, Ruth, Ian, you okay?
I'm certainly okay for the moment.
Yeah. No problem.
Right. Next question is from Rebecca from HD Services. I just want to understand from a consumer point of view why old double glazing is not covered. I understand the need for single glazing to be replaced, but old inefficient double glazing, which is drafty or has failed, why can we not upgrade from that to newer double glazing?
This is really about us trying to target the funding where it'll have most impact. So, you know, we really want to be funding lots of insulation, heating, those things. Windows are a secondary measure anyway, because, you know, although they're part of someone improving their home, the amount of improvement you get off it is lower than energy efficiency, than pure energy efficiency measures. But we recognise that it has positive benefits, and it helps, and it's something that consumers often want to do. So which is why we've brought some into the scheme. At the moment, I think going from one sort of double glazing to another is whilst there is a benefit there, and it's maybe not as big as some of the other measures that we're trying to fund, and we're trying to target the money where it's most effective. I mean, that said, we are in discussions about, you know, if what might happen when, you know, in the future, particularly if there was more money. And so I'm, you know, obviously happy to take the feedback that if there is, you know, if there is appetite for that, happy to take that away and feed that into future policy discussions.
Rebecca, do you want to come back on that?
Yeah, thanks for explaining. I guess from my point of view, if you've got double glazing that has failed and is drafting, is effectively only working as single glazing, that was where I was trying to understand where you were drawing a line. It's been a question that's been asked, so I thought I'd ask it here.
Okay. Thank you. Next question we have. We have another question from Rebecca. While you're there, do you wish to ask? You have a question here on the ground source heat pumps. Do you wish to ask? You've got
It's all right. Ian and I have had a conversation about this in the chat, so I think my understanding's a little clearer now. Thank you.
Okay. Right. Then we'll move on to a question that's come up from a couple of people. Can you provide a brief summary of how the vouchers will be granted? What are the factors you're looking at, and when the voucher allocation will happen? So if you can just, I don't know if this is one for you, Ruth, or if it's Simon, just go through the voucher allocation process, just to clarify it for people that haven't grasped that.
So I think we probably have covered some of this already. Obviously, first vouchers will be issued once the system goes live in the next couple of weeks. The exact, in the end, it will be there'll be a series of checks, basically. There'll be, hopefully, that most are automated. The idea being, because, you know, we're looking to process hundreds of thousands of voucher applications, so we wouldn't want to, you know, we want someone to be having to call all these things up and check them. And so for example, they'll be running through the various things that are needed in the scheme to check that the application is eligible. So to check that they've got a Trustmark registered and appropriately certified installer, to check that to do a credit check, to check that the property actually exists, all those sort of things that we're asking on the form. Most of those checks are being built in to be automated or to be batched, at least. I think some of the credit checking, for example, is batched. So we're working through, and the idea is that all those processes would be worked through in the system, and then the voucher should be issued. And so there will be an element of audit and an element of check on those, but that's the idea, is that the majority of applications should run through the automated system. I'm not sure if that answers the question, but hopefully that gives you a bit more idea on how it's done. It's not going to be it's not like one of these things where we kind of get everything in and compare them. They'll all be processed as they come in, if you see what I mean.
There's a question that's come in various forms as well. What happens if if the homeowner is turned down for a voucher? What is the appeals process?
Sadly, another thing I don't have details on yet. We are definitely, there is one in development. In fact, there's a workshop this afternoon that I've been invited to about it. There will be guidance on that coming out very soon. Again, with the automated, once the automated system goes live, all this stuff needs to be there. So there will be an appeals process that we're working through, and we're working through exactly what that process looks like. You know, how far it's done by the scheme administrators, at what point BEIS step in. You know, what things could an appeal be based on, things like that. So that's basically what we're working through at the moment, and guidance will be published soon.
Okay. Related to that, we have a question from Anne Barradine from Insulated Homes. When will we get clarity on park homes, which we've already kind of covered? Because we're on our third, or in some instances, fourth quote, as the rules keep changing on a daily basis. How does that affect the applications that the homeowners are making? Can they recall an application and change it when the quote changes?
The system will have the ability to change change things. Certainly, once a voucher is issued, there will be a process for being able to change that voucher if any of the things that went into it need to change, and obviously costs would be one of them. Again, until the system is actually live, it's quite hard to talk about this, but there will be an ability to change the system, to change the voucher if it's already been issued, should it need to be. It's probably the best option is probably to wait until that system goes live rather than to try and change in the current system, just because the nature of the sort of the processing that's happened at the moment is that it's manual processing. It isn't happening at it will be a lot easier and quicker to change it, I think, once the system goes live than it is currently.
Thank you very much. Do you want to come back on that, Anne? I don't think she...
Yes. Hi, sorry. Yeah, no, we just want clarity, as in what needs to be done so we don't have to keep changing these quotes, not have new information rocking up on a daily basis on what can be done, what can't be done. The problem is nobody knows. So we can't even quote. We're just wasting hours and hours and hours constantly changing quotes. So what we ideally want to know is when will there be a defined set of guidelines? Anyone?
Ruth?
Yeah, I do understand where you're coming from, and I appreciate the frustrations there have been on this. I mean, I think there was an element of political pressure to get the scheme launched when it was, and I think it probably hasn't made it. Whilst it was good in terms of getting out there for consumers, I think it has made it difficult for the industry to, when we haven't been able to be completely clear about everything that would be required. We are trying to get the guidance, to the point where it is completely right and all the information that is needed is in there. A lot of it is in there, and I think we have had. I think, but there have been a few. The thing we found is that as people have been using the guidance and coming through the system, they've found things that we've obviously not been completely clear on, or that we haven't, or that where the things weren't, and it's just reflected the speed that the scheme had to be developed at, and so we are trying to sort those things out. And to try and provide more clarity. I do appreciate that it's frustrating.
Ken, can I just come back in there? The people from BEIS, the last time, were asked a question about insulation and property. Now, the last room was 3 weeks ago, and they still don't know the answer to it. I think that's absolutely shocking. How can installers and people plan when our government and government department don't even know the rules and regulations? It's nothing against the lady that's talking today, but these answers should have been out weeks ago, because nobody knows. I'm trying to work with a park home installer, and it's very, very frustrating, to say the least. You say you're working hard on it. This should have been done 2 months ago, not working on it now. Thank you.
It's the clients. I don't mute yet.
Yeah, I completely understand your point, and I appreciate that it's frustrating. We're doing what we can on this. I think the only thing, we are where we are, and I don't think we can change the past. I think it would have probably been better if we had been able to start the scheme from when the system was ready in October, and that things were in the end of October, which would have been a bit more, which would have been, but then there perhaps would have been other delays that would have hit then. So it's, but I appreciate it's not ideal.
Okay. Right. We have a question from Paul Luen, who's asked, what can you tell us regarding the requirement, regarding the required form of quotation for the Green Home Grants Voucher Scheme in accordance with 14C of the application process? it says that a quotation must be in the form required under the installer terms and conditions. The installer terms and conditions don't seem to give enough information. So what form should the quotation be?
I'm sorry if that's not clear. Let me. I'll have to come back on that one because I'm wondering if there's an update to the guidance that I thought had gone out, but it hasn't. So let me check with the people who work on that, because I do. Yeah, obviously you can't provide quotations if it's not apparent what format they need to be in. So yeah, let me come back to you on that one. I'm really sorry. I keep having to say this. There are. I fear this meeting maybe a week too early for our guidance, but there is. I'm sorry. I'm going to come back.
Yeah, I think it's a frustration that it seems to be a week too early for BEIS, but it's kind of 4 weeks too late for the industry. So, Paul, do you wish to come back on that?
No, really, just to say that compliance with the terms and conditions is, fundamental requirement to securitize the income for the jobs with a business that's got national ambitions here. We need that certainty that the quotation requirements are tightly defined so that everybody can ensure that they comply without the need to resubmit, which will clog the system up.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Right, from CX, what happens when a lot of customers are old or vulnerable, do not have the internet, and cannot go to libraries due to ill health and COVID? Can the installer help them to upload the quote, as they do not have an email address due to age factor, health conditions, got no help but want to take advantage of the scheme?
So there will be an assisted digital phone line, so people who don't have digital access will be able to access the scheme through that. There are quite tight rules on what the installer can help the consumer with directly, just because obviously there was a fraud risk if the installer submits for the consumer as well as for themselves. And we have to be able to guard against fraud in spending government money. There are of course, I'm sure a lot of people have friends and relatives who will be able to help them, but that's basically the purpose of the assisted digital phone line, which isn't in place yet but will be, with the idea that being that it is able to support those people who aren't able to access the internet themselves.
Thank you. Do you want to come back on that?
Yes, please. Actually, I had rang the line as well to double check on what we should do in this case, because I have a lot of customers who are aged and who are not able to travel and things like that. So we visited their property and we've got onto the code. It's just that they needed that uploading part, which was the help which was needed, which is we were in a position to be like, what are we supposed to do in this case? Can we just upload and use our email address on their behalf, or what? Because we've been there in the physical property, they don't have anybody else in the country, because we're trying to connect with their friends and family. So
okay.
Unfortunately, that would almost, if you use the installer's email address, that would trigger one of our fraud checks, because if you think about the risk there, I mean, admittedly, I think if someone is really trying to carry out fraud, they wouldn't use the same email address, but still, there is a kind of that if there's any risk that it could be that the consumer doesn't actually exist, or is being sort of their name is being used, but they're unaware of it. We have to be aware. We have to be able to spot that, and so really it can't be uploaded by the installer.
Right. No, it's fine. As far as you guys will be going through the checks, that's the important thing, because at the end of the day, when it comes to property, going and seeing the customer and they're well aware of how everything has taken place, I think that would resolve a lot of issues, because then the transparency will come in place.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I know that Simon, you're pressed for time. I don't know if you want to say anything before you have to head off.
I don't think so, Kenneth. I think, you know, the events are really useful in terms of getting the feedback, the direction. We sort of sit and liaise with BEIS on a number of the areas, and you know, I know all of these things are pretty challenging, and I think we are all taking on board the comments that are coming back. But you know, we do probably now sort of need to be focusing on some of the finer detail, and making the most of the £1.5 billion that we have to get invested, you know, through businesses to consumers to improve property. So, you know, as ever, I'm quite happy to come back in the future and support, which I said I would do.
Okay. Thank you very much, Simon, and thank you for your contribution. I'm just going to take a couple more questions for Ruth here, if she's still willing.
I am during another meeting, so I can give you another 10 minutes. I mean, you've already had my 12 o'clock slot. That was meant to be somewhere else, but I thought it was more important that I stayed here and understood people's concerns. I
appreciate that. We have had an awful lot of questions. I'll cut it then at this. There's one more question. The 5% VAT rate, what is it available on and what is excluded? Does it cover the cost of retrofit, coordinators, fees, etc.? Because there seems to be a little bit of confusion between what BEIS are saying and what HMRC are saying.
So I got a note on this from someone earlier today. So currently that cannot be reduced for renovation activity. So for the retrofit coordinator, as that regulation, it falls under EU law currently, which obviously puts restrictions on what we're allowed to do, and we may be able to review that once we leave the EU. But as things are at the moment, we can't reduce the VAT rate on the retrofit coordinator. On obviously some of the energy saving materials are allowed to be at 5%, and there's quite complicated guidance on HMRC's website about and HMT's website about exactly what can and can't be at 5%. And so I would hate to give tax advice because I'm obviously not qualified to do that. But yeah, we have checked on the retrofit coordinators because it's a question we've had a few times, and they cannot be at 5% at the moment.
But if an installer is doing a quotation that includes the retrofit, or doing, because the quote going into the system is a single quote price. So if it does that single quote price, obviously includes the VAT, do the installers calculate that single quote as 5%, or do they calculate it, split it all out, but the single quote includes some of it at 5%, some of it at 20%? What's the guidance for the industry on what they're supposed to be charging the customer? Because they have to get the quotes out. So what should they be putting on the quotes? What prices should they be putting on the quotes?
Yeah, so I think they would need to split the quote out in the same sense that, you know, if you charge differently for labour and for materials at the moment on your VAT and your quote, you'd split that out. I think it would be the same approach on this. You know, different elements of it are going to have different VAT rates and would need to be calculated accordingly. I don't think there's a simple solution, I'm afraid, to that one. It's where the tax legislation is.
Yeah, there seems, because I've had a look at, because we've had this question in for a number of people, I've had a detailed look at this, and I've spoken to HMRC about it, which was a nightmare, trying to get someone from the VAT department to actually answer the question. Looking at their guidance, though, it does seem that they're saying the materials can be purchased at 20%, charged at 5%, and all service and work can be charged at 5%, but only for certain customers. So it's just clarification, it seems to be needed, because service and work would include the retrofit coordinator, surely.
Yeah, I think that's something that we should probably go back and discuss with HMRC, but the advice we've been given is that that retrofit coordinators specifically wouldn't be at 5%. But I can if you're getting, I agree the guidance is not as clear as it might be on that. So let me refer that one on to Treasury and see if they can clarify the guidance.
Okay. What I will do is, I know there are still a lot of questions that haven't been asked. What I'll do is I'll try and pop some of these over in an email if you don't mind. That's probably the easiest way to see if we can get some answers. But thank you very much for your time. I don't know if you want to say anything else, Ruth or Ian, before we wrap up.
I just wanted to say thank you for having me today. Apologies I haven't been able to answer every single question. I do think we will be getting there in the next couple of weeks. I think we have to. There is, I think we've made a lot of progress compared to where we were a few months ago when this wasn't even thought of. So I think there is, but yes, I appreciate there's still some frustration out there, and we're trying to resolve those. And it's really helpful to get the specific questions from you where things aren't clear, because then we can make sure that they are.
Yeah,
thank you, Kenneth. There was a couple of questions that I'd answered in the chat that might be helpful to share very, very quickly. Is PAS required for a heat pump installation if I'm MCS certified? No, it's not. MCS certification is all you need. As long as you register with Trustmark, it's not covered by PAS under this specific scheme, that is. Secondly, it's a question about a client who wants solar thermal and double glazing. Solar thermal is a primary measure, and the cost of the double glazing can't be more than the primary measure. So it is possible to have both. So I just thought I'd answer those because I feel like I've had a bit of a free
lunch.
Free lunch, yeah, which I'm now going to go for. So, but thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ian, for being on the call.
No problem.
Gary, do you want to wrap up?
Well, I haven't started yet. Yes, please. What I'd like to propose is, and Ian, if you're free, we'd welcome you, is to put in the diaries, because I know we spring this on you all so very late, the 19th of November, 11 o'clock. And if you would like to be included on that Zoom call, we're going to try and do one of these every month, purely because, as we can see, there are a number of requests coming across, only to find out, well, I'll have to go and find out about that. Scheme's been live a long time now in the overall length of time that this scheme is available for. 6 becomes 5, will become 4 very quickly. And given the weather conditions required for some of the materials to be installed are fast evaporating, we're losing the opportunity that we had in the first place to actually get some of this stuff installed while we still had the weather temperatures available to us. I would hope that government look at the fact that we need, as I asked before, an extension. Spending the money is one thing, and getting the vouchers signed off is all well and good. But we need 12 months after that to make sure the job's done properly, so that we're not railroaded into trying to install in conditions that will only mean failure. If you drive the industry to do it wrong, don't come back and say you've given us an option. That is not going to be workable. There's been a number of requests today about things such as, can we get vouchers done while we're going through getting our pads and everything. I would guard slightly against allowing that to happen, purely on the basis that what if we actually carry on and we get the vouchers and we start installing and we're still waiting for these accreditations to come through and then we don't get them. So, the rules are in place for a reason, to meet certain standards. Certainly as an association, we would recommend that nobody is allowed to install under this scheme unless they have the correct standards in place before they install. And we will always follow that because we think of the customer at the end. We cannot allow the opportunity of having a kid in a sweet shop with the lids off the jars and then our sweets are missing. It's happened time and time again from previous schemes where it hasn't been policed correctly, and people have been allowed to rake millions and millions out of this, only for everybody to go, well, you buggered the scheme up again. Then make sure the rules that you put in place are adhered to from day one all the way through to protect the customer. Yeah, these vulnerable people don't get a flaming choice. They expect people to turn up and do the job correctly. Please learn from GDIF, please learn from Green Deal, please learn from the other schemes. Everybody's talking about the failures that our industry has, and I'm getting sick of it. Makes me want to bloody cry. It's about time we got our pride back in our industry, and it's got to be that we follow the damn rules. Yep, look, it's not easy. We've been given an impossible task almost here to try and roll out what 4 or 5 times what ECO does in a flaming year when we haven't got the tools to do the job. We haven't got the knowledge to know what's going on. But I'll support it 100%. All I hope is that they listen to us. We need more time to get it done properly. Yes, we can get the money spent. We understand everybody's been caught on the hop here, and we're making the best of it. We all need to pull together. That's why we run these conferences for you. But please, let's not install unless we're qualified. That's the whole point of this. Ruth, thank you so much for coming on the call. You know, we'd love to have you on again with some of the answers you're going to take back. If you want a new notepad, I'll put one in the post for you because you've used the one up there. It's testing times for us, guys, but we just need to just take a breath. Let's not get too emotional, as I just have. We do need to pull together, and there are different reasons why, you know, things are hard. It's quite interesting that all the comments we get all come from certain parts of the industry. You know, you don't hear very much from the heat pumps. You don't hear anything from the solar water, biomass, all that sort of side. Must be doing all right. They haven't had any bloody vouchers, of course. But for me, it's a case of, if you've got more questions, email them to me. You've all got my email address. We'll do what we did last time. We'll put them forward to BEIS. It's important that we get this right. There's a lot more money behind this. We all know that. And yet we can all sit going, well, can't do this, can't do that, can't do this, can't do that. Yeah. All of a sudden, these vouchers are going to be here. It's only a couple of weeks. What I will say is this. Don't waste that 2 weeks not getting trained up. Use it wisely. I know certain people sitting on this call have been spending the last couple of weeks getting fully compliant, fully trained up, and well done. That's just logic thing to do. Shame we didn't know about this in March when everybody could have actually spent all that time getting fully qualified. But if we're waiting for 2 weeks, rather than sitting worrying about it, if you've got to get trained up on something, get on with it. Make sure when the vouchers are here, you're actually qualified and legally allowed to do it. Thank you so much. I'm going to shut up. I've rabbited on too long already, as I always flaming do. Thank you again for supporting us. As I say, 19th of November, 11 o'clock. If you're not a member of the association and you're on this call, you should be. Give me a ring and we'll sort it out. You know, we're going to do a lot of this stuff now. Now I've worked out how to do Zoom, you ain't going to keep me off of it. Kenneth, thanks very much for sorting the questions out. Ian, Ruth, Simon, I know you're not there anymore. Thanks very much. I'm going to clear off. We've got a busy day ahead. and we'll speak to you all. I'm going to give you one of them. Take care, folks.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.